Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And today I want to go over whether the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition is worth it. That's the conversation on the table. Is this game worth it? You could have spent as little as €95 to get your hands on this game, plus shipping and all that stuff, so rounded out to somewhere around the range of $200, or possibly as much as, not 200, I apologize, $120 or so. And then also you could have spent as much as €267 to get absolutely everything sun-dropped for this game, plus of course shipping, so again, possibly in the range of around $300, which means you are looking at between $120 to $300 for a game you can otherwise buy online for closer to $45 to $55, depending on where and when and all of that. So the question is this worth it? Is the special edition, what they give you, what the various options and configurations, is it worth it to you? Do I recommend it? Do I not? Let's go ahead and get into it. But before I get into it, disclaimer that I do work for Gamefound. I am CMO of Gamefound, and Gamefound and Awakened Realms are companies that have shared ownership. Awakened Realms work together with Alia to put out the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition, so there is that tangential working for a company that has shared ownership with the company that made this, so take that into account as we go through the video. That said, I definitely will be being critical of certain things, so let's go ahead and get into it. This is the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. It was my second favorite game of all time 2 years ago. I believe it dropped to number 17 last year. 17 out of thousands of games that I've played. Genuinely over 1,000 games. Probably around 1,500 to 1,700 games I've played across the course of my life. And the Castles of Burgundy dropped to number 17. I love this game. I adore this game. I've played this game over 100 times this year alone. It is one of my favorite games, and it does not get old, despite being one of the first games I ever got. I got this game when I first got into board games as part of like the first purchase I made of around 15 or 20 games, and it has held its own very much for me throughout that time. So this is an opinion that is born out of love for the game, out of an appreciation for having played the original edition, having played the next edition, having played this version with and without the miniatures, with the miniatures even just using the castles, with using the acrylic tiles. The one thing I have not done is I have not played this version with the regular cardboard tiles. I got the all-in with the acrylic tiles, and I jumped straight to that. But everything else, I have played through this game, and I like this game. And so to that end, let's talk about the various things that go on here to improve the experience in different ways, which things are better, which things are worse. And I'm going to start with the pros because there are a lot of pros, but of course there are cons as well. I'll timestamp to the things I like, the things I don't like, and then simply is it worth it or is it not, in my opinion, because it is expensive. We have to take that into account. So let's start with tiles. In the game you're going to have, let's rulebook off to the side over here, and Consolidated Rulebook is one of the first pros, by the way. The fact that you have a consolidated rulebook for everything you have in the game, for showing you all the stuff you need, showing you the various, various expansions all mixed in, absolutely everything from a single thing. And this is not something that's completely, immune. This is something that was in the last edition too, which was also a consolidated all-in-one edition, although they also have the Vineyards Expansion as well. That's going to be a big part of it as well. Let's go ahead and show you the Vineyards Expansion, because the first pro that can't really be avoided, I think I said first pro like 3 times now, but one of the pros that cannot be avoided as an actual pro is the fact that at the end of the day, if you want to play the Vineyards Expansion, the newest expansion for the Castles of Burgundy, then you need this edition. You simply don't have a choice, so it's not a question. It's if you want to play this new expansion, you're going to need to play through this edition over here, which means that is just a kind of incidental pro as far as whether this particular version of the game is worth it. You're going to have these boards set up next to your own personal player boards over here, so they kind of fit into the, I'm putting this on the wrong side over here, here we go. We have these fit in over here, and so you're going to have them set up, put into your board, and again, this is just present as part of this game, this expansion, and we have our acrylic tiles kind of set up over here. You can see them a drop over here, and then our bag full of acrylic tiles over here, which, by the way, is one of the things we're going to talk about, is how my setup is, because I do have all the acrylics kind of stored in the original base game set, although it took a little work to get there. But, so the very first factor is, and it does take a little bit of squeezing to put it back to where you want it to be, but again, the very first pro is the fact that if you want to play, I'm going to have to like spread this out again to get this back in. These tiles are thicker than the cardboard tiles, and so getting everything back in is a different kind of puzzle to work your way through, but a manageable puzzle to get through. But going back to it, again, if you want to play that edition of the game, if you want to play with the Vineyards Expansion, you're going to need this edition. So that's not really a conversation about, do you know which edition is better, was it worth the cost? That's more of a conversation of, if you value that, if you want to play with the new expansion, you need this edition. Is that worth the extra, well, again, variable amounts, anywhere from, is that worth an extra $60 to, is it worth an extra $100, $200, whatever it's going to cost extra, but it is going to cost you something extra, and you have to decide whether that's something you want or not. We'll get more into that into the worth it conversation, but it's certainly a pro that if you want that expansion, it's there. It's also dealing with just bigger stuff in general. The tiles are just bigger to begin with. We're going to go ahead and grab our Where is it? Where did I put everything? Where did I put my stuff? Over here. We're going to go ahead and grab our tiles over here for this expansion. But basically, we have these kind of overlays, that these things over here that will go on top of your board. But first and foremost, we got to take a little board over here, taking our little pieces and slide in a board to actually play with over here. You're going to slide this in over here, giving you a new tile place, and then boom, you put that in. But in general, once you have the tiles actually up and running, once you're reaching into your bags to figure out what tiles you want to put down into your tableau area over here, the tiles are just bigger than the regular Castles of Burgundy edition. So if you want that extra biggerness to your tiles, to your board, that's certainly present in this edition, which I like. I like the size over here. That 30% larger is enough for it to be noticeable and for enough to be a bigger experience than your typical Castles of Burgundy, but at the same time, it's not overwhelmingly large. There are many games I play where I'm like, sometimes bigger is not always better, but this is not one of those times. In this particular game over here, being able to mix in these tiles and have everything just a drop larger while still being very cool to go through, overall, that's just a strong improvement in general. I'll also say that the acrylic tiles are amazing. Now, this is something that does not come in your base version of the game. If you got that €95 pledge, you don't have the acrylic tile upgrades, and you could mix and match which acrylic tiles you get, whether the regular tokens, whether the tiles, but the acrylic tiles are beautiful. They feel nice, they look nice. There are some small printing misalignments. You can see a tiny drop of like the way the mine is over here. You can see like how it's a drop offset, but overall, those are incredibly barely noticeable across the course of play, and they have a nice premium feel. They fit into the bags nicely. They fit into the box-ish. We'll get into the whole how everything fits into the box later, but acrylic tiles are nice. I appreciate them. They will cost you extra. You have to spend more than $120 to get the game. You have to spend that extra amount to get that extra optional buy, but they are certainly a nice upgrade that feel very premium and look beautiful as you build out your board over here. And so I like the acrylic tiles in general. Speaking of tiles and art and all those things, the art is kind of a mixed bag for me. And this is something I touched upon in my unboxing video. I did a full unboxing of this game, but for me, the art is kind of a step sideways when it comes to tiles. Not when it comes to the main board. The main board I like a lot, but tiles and the art is a step sideways for me. Now, everything in this video is obviously personal opinion, but I think art is almost more a personal opinion. Art is more inherently subjective, and you'll never know who you're making happy, who you're not, when you try to put together something that, like, you know, looks different. There are people who love the first edition of Castles of Burgundy, there are people who love the second edition of Castles of Burgundy, there are people who love this version, and for myself, I find myself in the camp of appreciating this version very much, but with some aspects where I feel some aspects of art are better or not. I think the red replacement tiles for the green tiles that you previously wore the castles, I don't love the color adjustment. I understand why it was made, but I don't love it. I like the original art. I'll say that some of the art, you know, the art specifically and things like these over here are a little bit more muted. I know this is supposed to be the pro section, but because it's a mixed bag, I'm diving into things I don't like and things I do like. But overall, building art is a bit of a mix, a step sideways for me. Some things are definite improvements. Some things are steps back, but I will say what I will give them props for is everything is just as intuitive, with the mindset that I'm coming at this from the bias of having played the original editions, which could be a pro or a con as far as how intuitive the art was in this edition. Meaning on the one hand, I might be stuck in the framework of what buildings are what, and that wasn't the case. I was able to quickly pick up which buildings are what, you know, how the iconography on the science. I was able to pick up all of that without relying on any of the text on the back of the tiles. I say that because I haven't played with the text on the back of the tiles. But overall, I would say that everything is intuitive to someone who has played the previous editions. If you're diving into this fresh, will you be able to tell that, where's my building bag, will you be able to tell offhand without, you know, needing the rulebook that this particular tile, I'm just going to grab one randomly, I'm going to grab this tile, will you know if you're playing this for the first time that this is the 4-point tower? Probably not, because why would you? So it is I guess I'm coming with the knowledge of what a tile looks like in another game, but there's some degree of intuitiveness to it. Like, for instance, this over here, this looks like a shipyard, so that's an easy one as far as how that goes. This one looks like the tile where you take the die and you count the extra white die. That was true in the last edition too. This one has the color on it that shows you the two colors of buildings that you can take. And this one looks vaguely reminiscent of the circular building last time that let you place a new tile down on the board, but how would you know that? I don't know. Maybe because it's hex-shaped and there's a hex in the middle? I guess you could say that. And over here we have the bank. How do I know that? Because there's two silver towers, and the silver towers correspond to the silver you'll be taking from the bank. So there is that intuitiveness, but that intuitiveness is coming from the framework of knowing the original editions and the fact that they also took those approaches. So it's different, yet still intuitive as you go through it. Now the board art I think is both significantly more functional than previous editions and also well done. I am someone that fell in the camp of thinking the original Castles of Burgundy was very bland and okay, and the second Castles of Burgundy added more color and splash, but felt like kind of a visual hodgepodge, especially if looking at the board. And I like the art of this board a lot. I think in general the center courtyard where the tiles go, you know, the extra tiles you're going to have, the extra spots you can have for that expansion tile that kind of expands your size of your areas, for those little castle point areas where the courtyards go. go, where all the tiles go, where the scoring metrics go, the way you reveal these spots one at a time. So when you're looking at the game at the beginning, you can see that, hey, a size 5 area is 15 plus 10 is going to be 25 points. And then as you slowly expand through the various rounds, you can see, hey, 6 and 10, that's going to be 16 points. You can quickly see this overall, I find. And then the tower, the way you have the towers moving along. And previously it was boats, and now there's these towers. I'm kind of ambivalent in that. I think the towers allow you to stack things in a way the boats didn't, and so there's always that trade-off there. But overall, I think that for me, the board just feels practically functional and pretty. This is my favorite version of the Castles of Burgundy board. Again, art subjective, everything subjective, but I really like the overall board presentation. I like the fact that the board handles all the expansions. Like I said already, it kind of has these extra things that kind of blend. Like this tile is beautiful here, and this in particular, like this is one that you can barely, both of these are things that you can kind of ignore their existence if you're not playing with those expansions. They barely impact your experience, but then if you are playing with the expansions, it's right there. And so it's right there, it's right present in a way that incorporates it, and I like the fact that everything is kind of handled well on this board. Speaking of boards, I like the variety of boards they have, the additional new boards they have, plus the fact that all the players can use a board. So I'm stabbing myself on this as I grab these, but we have a lot of these tiles. A lot of these double-sided boards over here that are all going to give you different ways and different configurations as far as how you're going to play through your particular game, how you're going to like mix and match the various ways you're going to experience the game. Because you can see over here, we got the totally different setup over here as far as what your board will look like. We have a totally, actually I think I've played with this, yeah, I've played this one a lot in general. Like I'm trying to recognize the tiles I played with. Over here we have test number 30 over here, giving you the sections over here. And so there's a lot of different boards to go through, a lot of different variety in the experience, and variety that, again, both new boards and extra boards, but also giving you a copy for every player. If you want all players playing with board number 28, you can do so. And that's something that's particularly fun. If you are someone who's played on Board Game Arena, there's an option on Board Game Arena to say, I want the same boards as the other players. So we're really, truly playing with a symmetric experience as we go through it. Mostly symmetric. There's still small details. You roll dice differently. Things are going to change. But if you want that aspect of playing with the same board, you now can do so without having to play with multiple copies or just play online. And so I like that flexibility in the game, in the game design approach as far as how things go. The Consolidated Rulebook, I already mentioned. The building miniatures. Building miniatures have absolutely great sculpting across the board. Anything from, and I won't be showing you everything here. Again, there's my unboxing if you want to see that. But you can see things like this castle is going to go on your board, and this is going to be one of the castles sticking onto your board, so that now when you have your board over here, instead of having this situation over here, you now have your castles replaced by the different sculpts, and there are 4 different sculpts, meaning even if you have all 4 castles, you can have all 4 different sculpts, or you can try to be creative. This is not coming out smoothly and neatly. Alternatively, you can have be creative and simply say all the players have their own unique castle. That's their castle to go with. And I like that visual appeal as you have a board full of acrylic tiles and just the castles. It works. If you are someone who just got the core box and didn't get all the miniatures, this still has a nice visual appeal of having a bunch of tiles, but specifically having the castles as being the highlights that stand out from the masses, giving you a sense of anchoring to your board as you play through it, and I like that visual appeal as you go through it. So overall, another pro over there. And in general, past that, we're still on the buildings because there's a lot more buildings to go through. Let me put these off to the side over here so I don't get too lost as I go through things. But we have trays and trays and trays of buildings, all absolutely beautiful as far as what they can add. There's that mine over there. There's that not mine. The bank that's going to give you 2 silverlings with the 2 towers, matching the artwork of the cards beautifully. We have your boats over here that are going to go on the board, giving you a sense of adventure as you kind of put a boat or a water tile next to the castle and between them. It works. It kind of does work as you go through it. We have our 4 cow tile, giving you again more visual appeal to your actual tile that's going to be on the board, giving you literally the actual count of the miniatures of these tiles. And that's true for both trays. We have this whole additional tray over here with even more buildings to go through. Overall, the building sculpting is absolutely insane and really adds heavily to the immersiveness on your table as you go through it. Additionally, we have the metal coins which weren't even an optional buy, metal coins which were intrinsically part of your core experience, where, let me see if I can find them over here. We have your metal coins that are just part of the core pledge. If you paid that $95, 95 euro to get your hands a copy of the game, you just got the silverlings that you need to play through the game. So you didn't pay extra for it. It's built in to be part of your premium experience over here. These particular coins, and this, not just these, you have a whole stack of them over here, but I just only pulled out a few of them. But you're going to have those metal coins which are both nice quality and part of your core pledge, not something you had to pay extra for, although taken into account in the tile, in the price of the game. You'll have your worker tiles, which again I think are a nice solid improvement. These ones are the acrylics over here, so take that into account. But even so, the art and the aesthetic is matches from game to game, from the non-acrylics of the cardboard. And these again just give you a nicer degree of an improvement over the original worker tiles, as it were, in your game experience. So again, just solid things over there. The bags are high quality, and this is one where I was worried about. When I was doing the unboxing of the bags, I was worried that these would be too shallow. I thought these felt like, I was like, this is supposed to be premium bags, but they feel like they're not deep enough. But these work really well, like genuinely. If you play through the game, you'll experience this over here. These are wide enough that your hand goes in incredibly easy, and they're deep enough to hold all the tiles. Well, initially to me, I was like, I kind of want larger bags. They do the job perfectly. They feel incredibly premium. Grabbing the tiles you need from them does the job. From day one, the original Castles of Burgundy we made these special bags for the game, so you don't have to be shuffling your tiles face down. And this is now part and parcel of your core pledge in a bag that feels premium, is premium, and further adds to the experience. And so overall, a whole lot of things are just good things about this experience. You are getting higher quality components. You're getting just miniatures left, right, and center. You're getting acrylic tile upgrades. This is definitely an enhanced and improved experience. Absolutely no question whatsoever to me. To you, it might not be, because we are about to get into the things I don't like, and some of those things are just things I wish were better. Others are things that do get in the way. To me, on a personal level, this game is clearly the best versions of Castles of Burgundy, but whether or not it's worth the large price tag attached to it, that's a different conversation we'll come to shortly. With that, let's start with the things that I don't like quite as much, the nitpicks I have along the way. Starting with the one I already mentioned, which is the building art is a mixed bag for me. Now, for me on a personal level, that's not a problem. Mixed means mixed. It means if I'm judging this by art alone, this is still the best version of Castles of Burgundy, even just by art alone. But do I wish some things were a little reminiscent of the last edition or possibly changed? Yes, we'll all have our personal preferences, but the art is a mix. Not all art changes, not all aesthetic changes are plus to me. In general, the functionality, I didn't even touch upon the functionality of the player board, but I think the functionality of the player board just did a really solid job for the most part. I kind of wish there was a place to stack your soul tiles as opposed to off the board, but you can kind of work with that. I feel there's space to make that work. I don't know. Either way, but overall, the art is still a step in the right direction, but with areas that are not personally to my preference quite as much. I'll say that a big nitpick I'll have is that it kind of feels like this is designed as an experience that is a premium experience, but if you want to go full premium, you have to make trade-offs along the way, which feels counterintuitive. I don't know what the pledge distribution was of people who bought the €95 pledge versus people who went all in. And I respect 100% the degree of complexities in trying to arrange a product that's going to fulfill a wide variety of people. And so I respect the challenges at play. But at the same time, it feels that if you wanted to go full premium on this game, you had to make certain trade-offs, which to me feels counterintuitive to the person who wants to go full premium. The person who's willing to spend $300 on this game, I think they want the ideal enhanced experience and not having to make trade-offs along the way. And if you did go with the full $300 version of the game, meaning if you got everything and you got all the stuff, there's two main trade-offs you're going to see. The first is the fact that your acrylic tiles do not have printing on the back. Now, this is either a pro or a con, and it's the nature of not being able to design around everyone's individual needs. But the fact that they decided that the €95 version of the game is going to have printing on the back of everything. Now, they do have play rates, so that they do have nice play rates for everyone available. But over here on the back of each tile, you have to rely on the fact that the core version of the game has the printing on the back, so you don't have to reference the rulebook or even your player. You can just reach into the bag, pull out your tile, look at it, and be like, boom, there we go. I know exactly what this tile does. Whether it's a basic tile or whether it's a science tile, they all had printing there for you, and that printing disappears as soon as you place it down to the board, so it doesn't ruin the aesthetic aspect of the game except for those 2 seconds of pulling out of the bag. I think it was a good idea. And acrylic tiles don't have them, which to me is like, okay, great, the premium version of the game doesn't have the thing that you viewed as an upgrade. Now, I'm not talking about the costs of printing on acrylic tiles. I don't know what the costs are like, and I'm not here to comment on what sustainability there was or whether it would have been better or worse. What I am saying is the premium upgrade, in theory, doesn't have something that was viewed as an improvement. Now, that doesn't bother me on a personal level. Like I said already, I've played this game a lot, and so I know all the tiles. I don't need that visual aid. I don't need the reminder, but for others, that is something you're going to want to take into account. If you went full premium on these acrylic tiles, you don't have the text on the back, which may or may not have been something you like. And I guess even for me, it's still useful in the sense that right now when I play the game, I'm the person at the table who always tells everyone, oh yeah, that new science tile just came out, and here's the rules of how that works, as opposed to the person just being able to reach over and flip it over and check it out themselves. So that's one thing that going full premium has a cost attached to it. Now, the area where going full premium has a cost attached to it that bothers me a bit more is the way everything fits together. The inserts here are structured and built around your standard tiles. That's what they're built around. They're not built around anything that's premium or deluxe, although I will say, I forgot to mention this part, but a definite pro over here are going to be, this is definitely a general pro, is going to be these crates, these goods over here, are just insane quality over here. I love these as far as the way these are, the way they look, the way they feel. These tiles over here are just amazing as far as the in general. And again, this can be in your basic version of the game. Going back to my complaint about the inserts though, the inserts are not built around your premium tiles. The inserts are built around the basic tiles, which for me, I have been able to make it work. I have been able to get everything in, but it doesn't, you'll see, this compromises even my way, and there's a degree of cramming as you try to get everything in. So first of all, over here, if you go ahead, and I'm just going to show you what I do so you can mimic it yourself if you want, but underneath over here, we're going to have our tiles, our options for the Vineyards Expansion, and underneath here we have some core tiles here. They fit in still fine. We have our various wine tiles that do fit into here, so you can see them over there. Those are the acrylic upgrades, and they do fit into that spot nicely. But then past that, I'm not even going to mess with it right now too much, because what you do have over here is once you, I'm sorry, give me a second while I try to, this is just a bit out of the way. There we go. Nope, needs to be picked up, and I got jammed a bit against that tile. There we go. So, past that, over here, these tiles over here, putting the wine tiles over here, the grape tiles in that bag, it does work, but the insert lays a drop pushed against it. Doesn't perfectly condense into it because they're bigger tiles, and that spot in the apartment was not meant for that size tile. Over here, in our main tray over here, I'm able to put down most of the things I need over here. We got these acrylics over here, these standard wooden things from the game. But over here, if I'm willing to compromise a bit in terms of how everything fits, I was able to get this to work by this combination of stuff over here. We have our tiles over here for the various workers. The acrylics of the workers fit over here, but I need to put 2 workers over here on top, a bunch more, not 2. A bunch of the workers need to go in here, and then a worker over here on top of there, because these don't fit here. These, by the way, are supposed to go over here, but I moved them to over here so that you can fit the scoring point tokens over there. And again, if I'm willing to put a worker on top and a worker on top, it all fits just fine. The dice fit here like they're supposed to. The good crates fit over here. And then these, again, they're actually the tiles that go in the bag, those fit fine. They do fit into this little pouch area over here, and you can still put things down properly. In fact, let me just go ahead and put that back down right now as we go. And so still everything does kind of fit down over there with minimal pushing up from the plastic tray on top. But then over here you can see how I have all these tiles. Sure, the white ones fit nicely, but these have to do a bit of a hodgepodge as far as how they actually fit in here, pushing them from one department to the next to make everything fit, because otherwise they're not built around the way these work. So yes, it does work. Yes, you can fit your acrylic tiles into it. I have my other wooden tiles off to the side. You can't get them both in here. My wooden tiles are off to the side somewhere else right now, being in some, I didn't throw them out yet. I'm not ready to throw them out just yet, but you do have to make that sacrifice again where the insert is built around a certain way. And yes, I can kind of make it work, but there's definitely a degree of trying to make everything fit where it's not supposed to fit, including those 2 tiles that are just like sitting on top of the rest of the tiles just to make it all fit. And so that's a trade-off in the way that you're going full premium, but making a compromise on the experience along the way. I'll also say that over here, one thing that was really a pet peeve that I really did not like a lot is this actually should go back in the bag so I don't forget about that. But over here, one thing that I have found, and I don't know if this is unique to my copy, I don't know if it's an ongoing thing, I assume it's a general thing, but this little overlay doesn't perfectly line up with these sheets. You simply cannot get it to. In other words, what we have over here is this little plastic sheath has the spacing between it, the actual spacing, and on the tiles you don't have that spacing, and it feels like it was designed around the size of the tiles and not the way it works. So no matter what you do, however you push or adjust these over here, you'll always see that on the reverse side, you start to see that gap facing off. I don't know how well you can see it over here. So if you see over here, you can see that these lines up nicely, but then over here, they're a drop overlaid, a drop different as far as where they are. And if I line up that one so it lines up nicely, which I can do, boom, there we go, now it fits. Well, now if we go down here, they don't line up nicely. And it's a small detail. It really is a small detail, but it is such a pet peeve. Like, genuinely, it is such a pet peeve as you're playing through the game, where you're trying to get everything, this game looks beautiful, everything looks amazing, and you have all these map pieces that are a drop offset as you go. Am I still going to play with this version? Yes, 100%. Is it kind of annoying to have your $300 version of a game to have like the slight micro adjustments of where everything is, so it's never actually going to be perfect? It is definitely a pet peeve. Again, I told you I'm going to complain about the small things, and this is definitely a small thing, but it's a small thing that is present as you go through it. Now, a big one in general is going to be the buildings and the miniatures. Do they enhance your experience? Do they get in the way of the experience? Because when you're playing, what you're effectively doing is you take the tile, you put it down to the board, then you grab these as a miniature and you swap it out as you go, which means you have these 2 giant trays of miniatures on the table that are going to be adding to the table space. In between, every time you place a tile, you're now removing a tile, putting it off to the side. Don't put it back in the bag because that's going to mess up your distribution. You have to put it off to the side somewhere else, and then grab the correct miniature, put it onto your board. There is a cost in the pure time and management of what you're doing in order to make your board look beautiful. And that is something that's going to get in the way of your experience. You have to decide if it's worth it to you or not. Because again, if you're playing with the full Miniatures Expansion, you have 3 full trays. You have your castle tray, which has the castles over there. You have your 2 miniature trays. That's a ton of stuff set up on the table. As opposed to if you're just playing with the castles, it's a lot more manageable. In fact, you can even put the castle tray back in the box and just have the castle miniatures on the table. Add a drop more initial setup at the beginning, but not have to deal with all the table space. And so that is something that is just a practical limitation of dealing with the buildings and the miniatures. I still like the miniatures. I still will be playing for the miniatures for the most part, with the caveat, which is my second complaint, in addition to the practical just dealing with the back and forth, is the fact that I find that the sun drop, as much as I love Awakened Realms sun drop in general, I find that for this particular game, for Castles of Burgundy, the tones of the game are a little bit more muted than I want when everything is on the table. When you have this game set up, when you have your boats, your ships, your buildings, when you have everything set up on the table, the overall tones are a drop more muted, and the lack of color distinction between different buildings means that if you're playing with the acrylic tiles, you have this beautiful aesthetic of the different tiles and the art showing off. And if you have these 2 buildings over here like that, then you just have 2 buildings. Like, it doesn't pop the same way that building tiles. In fact, let me go ahead and try to find you 2 specific buildings. Let's see if we can find some buildings over here and show you what the kind of feeling is like over here. We got one over here, we got a tower, and we just need a bank. Let's find a bank over here. Give me 1 second to find a bank for you so you can get a sense of, here we go. We got a bank, we got a tower over here. And let me show you what you have, 2 different regions as far as looking down at this game over here. This is what you have when you have 2 banks on the board. Okay, that's what the 2 banks look like. And this is what you have as far as you have 2 different buildings on the board. There's something nice about this that you don't get with that. And let me try to show it to you, like, even like, you know, kind of looking at a bit of an angle. I don't know how well you can see. Let me try to show you top camera. If you're looking at even a bit of an angled look over here, so you have like more, let's try to show it like this. So if you're looking at the table, this is your board, and this is what you can see over here. You can see that this looks beautiful because of how, like, the 3D it looks. But this has color and pop to it. And I kind of want both. Obviously, doing both would come at a huge cost. You can't have incredibly custom-made miniatures. But I will tell you that as a game that I've had in my collection since the very beginning of all time, and as a game that I play a lot every single year, I am debating whether to just fully paint my entire miniature line so that I can have both the 3D aesthetic, but also having a degree of extra color splashing going on in the game to really add to just how good it looks on the table. I encourage you to look at pictures, because I guarantee you there'll be people who actually have the time to paint things, who have the game on the table, and look at what their miniatures look like. Look what their table presence looks like. I think it's going to be incredible, contrasted with Sundrop, which normally I'm a huge fan of Sundrop, and I'm still a fan of the Sundrop, but it's still, the color distinction is a little bit lacking compared to what you even get from the beautiful acrylic tiles, which means sometimes I'm going to play the game with the acrylic tiles and sometimes I'm going to play the game with the miniatures. It's going to be case by case, and sometimes that case by case might be determined by the table space and the amount of space I actually literally have on the table to play the game. And I think that's everything I have as far as complaints. Is it worth it? That's the question at the end of the day. Is this game worth it or not? I think it depends on who you are. And I think there's 3 main options here on the table. There's, should you just pick up a copy of Castles of Burgundy, that's still available. You can still get your hands on a relatively priced $45, $55 version of Castles of Burgundy. You can still do that. That's option 1. Option 2 is you go out and buy the €95 version of this game, which is expensive. It's going to run you shipping. The €95 is going to have all these things, but it's premium, but it's not $300 worth of premium. And option 3 is you go full $300 premium. And I think as far as the is it worth it or not, kind of depends on who you are. If you are someone who has not played Castles of Burgundy, I don't think this is the game for you. I don't think you need to dive into it, spending, again, $120-ish by the time you factor in shipping and all those other things. I think that spending $120 on a game that you don't know if it's for you or not, I think your regular version of Castles of Burgundy will bring you tremendous joy. It's a game that, after all, rose to the top 20 or 30 of Board Game Geek on its own merits and nothing to do with the production at all. And the production may even be overwhelming at first. So if you're someone who's diving into Castles of Burgundy for the first time, I recommend trying a friend's copy, playing it on Board Game Arena. Or if you have to buy a copy to try it, buy a regular version of the game. I don't think this is the way to go. I think your regular standard version of the game is the way to go. If you are someone who loves Castles of Burgundy, despite the cons, I think this is a game experience I think this is a version of the game that will overall provide significant enhancements and enjoyment to your experience. There's a lot of upgrades here, from the acrylic tiles to the improved art to the improved functionalities, the variety of player boards. Again, the bags you can pull tiles out of, which is a huge thing. There's so many, the metal coins, the worker tiles, the goods tiles. There are so many aspects of improvement on the original game that this is the best way to play the Castles of Burgundy, at least for me. but it's the best way at a price point that will run you, again, anywhere between $120 to $200 to $300, which is significantly more than the 55. So you have to decide, how much do you like Castles of Burgundy? If you're playing Castles of Burgundy once a year, I don't think this is worth it. If you're playing Castles of Burgundy 2 or 3 times a year, maybe get that €95 version of the game. Maybe that's worth it. You'll still get a lot of the enhancements, but you won't have to deal with messing around with the miniatures left, right, and center, and you won't be spending that much more money. If you're playing Castles of Burgundy 10, 15, 20 times a year, you probably love this game as much as I do, and it may well be worth it to get the full version of the game. So is it worth it? If you love the game, I think it is. But pick and choose accordingly, because I do not think this is a pure... I don't think it's a pure and simple case of this is the best version of the game, period. I think that there's so many improvements here, but those improvements come at a cost, and there's also small trade-offs that get in the way, both in terms of just generally managing the miniatures, as well as small nits and picks and grievances all the way as far as just general design of any product and where this one ended up. I am a huge fan of Castles of Burgundy. I am a huge fan of the special edition of this game, but it's I'm a huge fan that is cognizant of the price point of what you're paying for, and that it's still not a perfect experience. It's still not a perfect experience. It's just my personal favorite experience that we have so far. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.